Hi, I'm Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News. This week on right-wing extremism, we're going to be discussing constitutional sheriffs and what constitutional sheriffs are and what their history is, I should say. And to do that with me, I am going to bring in a guest, Eric Levai, who works with Daily Dot and also the Rolling Stone covering right-wing extremism. You just had this amazing piece that came out this week. We're going to go over it later on in the program, about Florida sheriffs basically instructing Capitol insurrectionists on what to do, giving them hot tips at the January 6th insurrection. So we're going to go through that piece. But I wanted to start the show off actually talking about the history of what constitutional sheriffs are. I think a lot of folks have never heard of them, have no idea what they are, and they are absolutely becoming more prominent in right-wing extremism.
Yeah. Rick Staley, who, just to be clear, well, I know we're going to talk about my piece later. He was not actually present at what I wrote about, but he is the sheriff of Flagler County, and he is a constitutional sheriff, which I think is definitely important given what you and I are going to talk about. And that, more or less, constitutional sheriffs is a right-wing extremist movement, an anti-government movement, which, just to sum it up, says that the county sheriff, as you know, Tina, is the ultimate arbiter of the law. Doesn't matter, FBI, the president, no one can tell the county sheriff what to do. That's what it is.
They are ordained to be the protector of the Constitution. The problem here is that you're giving all of this power to one guy that might not understand what the Constitution is, even above SCOTUS. So it's crazy. I wanted to play a video so folks can get an idea of what we're talking about. This is Richard Mack. Richard Mack is a sheriff. He is actually the founder of this movement. This video is from, I believe, 2013 or so. So here's him openly discussing that the LA sheriffs, of course, the LA sheriff thinks this, but that county sheriffs in general are, above judges even.
In 2010, I formed a national group called the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org. And we're all dedicated to preventing all injustice. And I believe that the best way to do that is to have sheriffs and peace officers in this country who are trained in the oath of office. Why do we take that oath of office and then never find out what it was about? I don't believe law enforcement can afford to do that anymore. We have to know that we are the guards of the republic. We are the protectors of liberty. We are the last line of defense for the citizens against tyranny. And let me tell you this too, it is a peaceful and effective process. And for instance, if anyone from government is abusing a citizen, it would be our duty to stop that sort of thing. I don't care if it's a federal agent, local officer, doesn't matter. We are dedicated to the Constitution and to the principles upon which this country was founded, and we will not let anybody's rights be violated by anyone. Well, who decides? Okay, so when I take an oath to tell the truth in court, who decides what I will say? Do I say, oh, well, I have to check with the judge first? Oh, no, I have to check with the legislature first. Oh, no, I have to check with my supervisor first. No, whoever takes the oath is the one who has to decide. It's his oath. Okay, he's responsible for fulfilling that oath. What we say is he must know and understand the Constitution, so when he's forced into that predicament, he'll know what to do. He'll know what side. Because what side do we take in America? Always with liberty. A decree from the governor does not supersede the Bill of Rights. It does not supersede the Constitution. I must know and understand that before that happens. Okay, so, Martin Luther King said that we all have a moral responsibility, a moral duty to disobey unjust laws. He's absolutely correct. Why would any of us obey an unjust law? Why would any cop enforce an unjust law? And I compare that story to Rosa Parks. She was arrested by 2 peace officers who swore an oath to the Constitution. Why? Because they did the wrong thing. They should have sat down next to her and escorted her home safely. Not enforce that stupid law. We should never be enforcing those stupid laws.
So how would you argue, because I mean there's many law enforcement officials across the country that have decided to go along with sanctuary cities. How is that something that?
Yeah, as long as it's a sanctuary for the Second Amendment, we support that.
Okay, lots to break down there. Lots to break down. So again, this is a guy that's basically saying we are above the law. We are the last person that gets to decide what is the law. We don't have to pay attention to judges. We don't have to pay attention to the legislator. So there's absolutely no checks and balances on the power that these guys think that they have. You know, and obviously the problem here is when you ask them poignantly about anything about, well, what about sanctuary cities at the end? Well, no, that's crime. So the fact is they're going to decide what is and isn't crime based on their biases, and that's incredibly dangerous. And I'd also like to say, are you kidding me bringing Rosa Parks and MLK into this conversation? These guys have been, out of the forefront of condemning BLM movement as, being problematic and crime-ridden. So again, like this to me is a very dangerous movement that we see blossoming here, starting in, what you said, 2010, right? So now here are 2022, and they are, increasing in size and capacity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Richard Mack and anyone, like that, they're going to enforce the laws that they want to enforce, and they're not going to enforce the laws that they don't want to enforce. And that's nothing new. In fact, before we did this interview, I was thinking about how this is really like the Supreme Court's version of originalism, right? Like right-wing extremists who are on the Supreme Court at some point came up with this idea of originalism, which is just another way of saying, I'm going to enforce what I want to do, and I'm not going to do what I don't want to do, right? But you just cover it with a veneer of some kind of, it's a scam.
It's a scam. Yeah. I mean, I doubt that he believes that MLK should have been, or Rosa Parks should have been protected. That's just hogwash. Originalism is a good point you're making. He brought up the Bill of Rights, so, I mean, if we go back to that period of time, all men are created equal, right? What does that statement actually mean in the context of that period of time? It doesn't mean all men. It means white property owners, white male property owners, right? It was applicable to a very small percentage of the United States population. The only saving grace was that it was written as a universal statement, and therefore we now apply it to mean exactly, a universal thing, all men. But that wasn't the case previously. So do these guys want to go back to that?
Yes. I mean, yeah, that's just my honest answer is, yes, that's exactly what they want to go back to. And they have a badge and a gun. And this country has a long history of kooks and strange people, and we embrace that in some degree. And, that on some level, like, you're allowed to have kooky and weird views in this country. But once you have that badge and the gun, then we have trouble.
Yeah, we have trouble. I also thought it was a little bizarre that he's bringing up these things, knowing that the sheriff's department started as slave catchers. That is also historically true. So their original dictate was to catch slaves and bring them back to their owners. So this idea, again, that they would protect people like MLK, Rosa Parks, or other Black folks that are suffering injustice is ludicrous to me.
No doubt Dr. King would be, I'm being completely sarcastic, but yeah, I'm sure he would be very down with the constitutional sheriffs. Like, you really can't make this stuff up. And it's like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I know. It's wild stuff. I want to talk about Cliven Bundy for a minute, and I think we need to explain who he is for the younger generation, and also a refresher course for folks that might remember the name.
What are you trying to say, Tina? Younger generation? No, I'm just kidding. What are you trying to say? It was like 6 years ago.
All right. Okay. No, it was more than 6 years ago. Yo,
it was? Oh no.
22. Yeah. So, Cliven Bundy. I have from 2014 actually some press conference video that Richard Mack gave at the Cliven Bundy Ranch. Now, so Cliven Bundy was one of the original right-wing militias. This is what birthed the Oath Keepers. Actually, you'll notice in this video that there's several Oath Keeper flags. But basically what happened is he was grazing his cattle on federal land. He got into a beef with the Bureau of Land Management because he didn't want to pay for the grazing fees, which are, they're charged for a reason. This is what helps us try to preserve the land. This is public land. It's owned by the taxpayers, not the federal government per se. So he let that bill run up to like $1 million. He didn't want to pay the bill. So there ended up being a standoff between Cliven Bundy, the Oath Keepers, including multiple sheriffs and the FBI. So this was a press conference that occurred in 2014. Let's go ahead and play that.
Amazing. I've known Clive Bundy. I got to tell him I'm sorry. I always called you Clive. I didn't call you Clive, and I don't know if you know that, but I've always called him Clive. We've known each other about 20 years. We've spoken at freedom rallies all across the country because we're fighting for our Constitution. We want our Constitution placed back as the supreme law of the land. We don't believe that bureaucratic policies and regulations supersede the Constitution. I came here because I don't believe the BLM has any authority whatsoever. They have no law enforcement authority in Clark County, and they have no business whatsoever destroying the pursuit of happiness of one of our friends and brothers. Their policies, grazing fees do not supersede life, liberty, and property. And we had federal agents here that were ready to destroy all three of those. And I was so amazed that there's men in this country who have sworn an oath in God's name to uphold and defend the Constitution that we're here ready to shoot fellow Americans. And I want to talk to you right now. When the federal bureaucracies and your supervisors tell you to arm yourselves with all these high-powered rifles and go out and maybe shoot people who are merely trying to defend their livelihoods and their families, stand down and tell your supervisors that you won't do that for a paycheck or a pension or for anything. Stand down and go home. You have to be better than that. You have to know better. You're better than that. Stand for America and leave your stupid jobs behind. Protect your families as well. Now, I've got to say, I've been bad-mouthing politicians all over this country. Where were they? Where was John McCain when this was all going on? Where was Mike Lee, Rand Paul's, Ted Cruz? Where were any of them? Where was Justin Amash? All of them from Washington. Michelle Bachmann, I never saw her stand for any of this. Where were they? Where was the White House? What were they all doing while we had people out here almost dying?
You gotta love the Oath Keeper flag just flying in the background as a the chef's kiss.
The chef's kiss. So this was 2014, and you hear this rhetoric in given in the context of today, and it sounds absolutely on par with everything we heard coming out of these guys' mouths on January 6th. No exaggeration. Now, okay, so they're acting like the victim, but the reality is he could have just paid the grazing fees for this extended period of time that he didn't pay them for. There's a reason that people weren't like getting behind you and saying, yeah, it's okay. You think you can just mooch off the taxpayer, and then you want to escalate it, to armed warfare. I mean, the FBI didn't show up with armed agents out of the blue. I mean, now we can have a separate discussion as to whether that was an appropriate response. Right. But, fact of the matter is these guys were already birthing this sort of like we're above the law, right-wing extremism stuff back then.
Yeah, there's a pattern here, right? So we're seeing this again, that you're doing something that, the rest of us are asked to follow the law. We don't always agree with it, but there seems to be a real pattern here with these people where it's like, gee, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. And as you said, you just had to pay some fees. It's federal land. It's our land, not yours. But again, right, we keep coming back to this. And that situation, the way it was handled and not well handled by federal law enforcement, you can draw a direct line between that and then where we got to the Capitol.
I agree. We can. In fact, the original Oath Keeper website, I'm going to read you what it opened with. This has now been deleted, but it originally said they define themselves as nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, police, and first responders. So the idea that we now see all of these sheriffs and local law enforcement individuals as part of the Oath Keepers shouldn't be shocking to anybody. That is where they originated. So constitutional sheriffs, Oath Keepers, hand in hand. There's no two ways about that. But again, the thing that I find most disturbing is that if they were actually interested in upholding law and applying law in an unbiased fashion, it would be a different conversation. But we just absolutely know that this is not the case. Simple.
Of course not. Never.
Which, yeah, never. which brings us to your piece that came out this week. Very eye-opening. It's called "Say Hi to the Donald for Us." Florida police briefed armed right-wing group before they went to January 6th protest. That is some wild stuff. I did record. We did record a bit of the segment where you see the sheriff addressing the right-wing Capitol insurrectionists before they're off to DC. So let's play that, and then we're gonna get into your piece.
All right, Commissioner Mullins spoke to the sheriff the other day and asked us to come down here to speak to you with some safety tips. You're all going up to DC, and it's, you may have some opposition, so we want you to everybody be safe. We're from. My name is Commander MacLeod from the Homeland Security section of the Sheriff's Office. We have Director Chris Peterson, who runs the Homeland Security section for the Sheriff's Office, and Corporal George Bender. So. George appreciates that hand. Thank you very much. Okay. Now remember, you're going up north. This is not Florida, so it's going to be a little chilly. So please have proper clothing because it's going to be cold. All right. And COVID's still with us. So with that, before you go, we have a box of individual hand sanitizer you can take with you, pin it on you, so this way you keep washing your hands. Because DC is a dirty city. Never mind.
I mean, so this video was shot by a local independent journalist named Tracy Eaton down there in Florida. You found this, I believe, on Twitter?
Right. It was quietly sitting online, as sometimes in journalism, some great finds are. I honestly don't know if anyone had ever seen it. I think it had almost no views. And I was doing a little research and I found it along with a companion video when they come back, which is also very interesting, although it's not, this video is incredible, but when they come back is also very interesting. Eaton was there on the 7th as well. But yeah, it's all, one of the things I tried to bring out in the piece, which is in the 3rd or 4th paragraph, it's all in this video, the intersection and the dark alliance between far right sort of anti-government groups, which is called the Flagler Liberty Coalition, a far-right politician, Joe Mullins, who I'm sure we'll get into, the people themselves, who hold these far-right views, and law enforcement. It's right there, like in a bow almost. Incredible.
Gift is tied and delivered
Literally.
in a bow. And in fact, let's pull up your article and go through it. So Florida sheriffs, acting under the orders of a local politician, gave a security briefing to an armed right-wing group heading to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, according to videos obtained by the Daily Dot. The Flagler Liberty Coalition recommended its members pack body armor, mace, and knives.
Yeah, we have he's since deleted the video, but we unfortunately the internet is forever, as we know. And yeah, he Mark Phillips, who's I believe is listed as the secretary of the Flagler Liberty Coalition, but he really seems to be the main organizer. Yeah, he told them to straight up bring all that stuff.
So we actually did grab that video, so we can play it. Let's go ahead and play that, Colin, so people can hear this, because it's pretty crazy.
One being a helmet, okay? The last thing we need is somebody throwing a rock, hitting somebody in the head, and then all of a sudden it takes 2, 3, 4 people out of our crew to carry somebody to safety. You can get a simple helmet at Walmart, a skateboard helmet. They're cheap. Anything over your head is a good idea. So I just really like to stress that point. We also have a list out there. We put body armor on there. We put face mask coverings, mace, pepper spray, a knife. You can have a knife up to 3 inches, not a switchblade. It has to open just, on its own. So this is a perfectly good thing to use here. We don't want to scare anybody, but we want our group to be prepared. We will be with other groups. We will have a very large group. I will be meeting with another guy tonight to join our group with his. So anybody that's elderly, anybody that's not, let's say in fight mode, so to speak, you guys will be on the interior. We will have people all around you to protect you. Your safety is my priority. Okay, I want everybody coming home coming back from this trip with a win. We need to take our country back, and we need to show up for our president.
We don't want to scare anybody. that's the best.
But wear a helmet in case you get hit over the head by a
Sure.
brick or rock or I mean, you cannot tell me that these guys didn't go to the January 6th rally expecting to engage in violence and anticipating violence. I mean, this is absolutely obvious at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, while we don't live inside the minds of anyone but ourselves, it's like my research on Phillips shows that he very much seemed interested in, as most of these folks do. And I mean, you don't get dressed up like that unless you're looking for something. And in the piece too, Commander Lutz and the director Peterson, make very clear, while they don't use the word Antifa, they use the word anarchist, but that's the enemy they're talking about.
Right. Of course.
That
I
part
mean,
is
but
wild,
everybody
too.
that disagrees with them is Antifa. I mean.
Right.
All right.
Of course.
So together the group, back to the article, together the group bought 3 buses of people to Washington on January 6th. And also, is he an oath keeper? Do we know this?
Who an oath keeper?
The guy in the video, Phillips?
I'm not. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not aware of any affiliation with any bigger group. We did look into that.
Hard to establish, though.
That I'm aware of right now. But obviously the group is seems very similar to some of those groups. But no, I'm not aware that he's a member of any group.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the briefing is one of the best publicly available videos illustrating connections in advance of January 6th between right-wing activist groups, pro-Trump protesters, MAGA politicians, and law enforcement. Yeah, agree. Flagler authorities, Mullins, and the FLC did not respond to requests for comment. Well, that's not surprising. In another one, we're moving on to other videos now. In another one of the participants asked about going to the Capitol after President Donald Trump's speech. He is hushed and told that the group would speak about it later. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure if my editor and I sometimes, and that's why journalists always need an editor, even though all of us think we're the best writers ever. When I watched that part, I thought it was more like, have you ever been in a group and someone is just talking a little too much and then people are like, we'll talk about that later. When I first watched that was my reaction. I was like, oh, he's just, because he starts asking, he's like, so there's going to be different rallies. But I think that it's possible my editor saw that part differently. And I would leave it up to you or whoever to just watch that. Okay. But they were kind of like, we're going to talk about that later, And,
yeah, that seems a little strange to me. It seems like they don't want it on camera is what I'm getting at. But who knows? Who knows?
It's very possible. Yeah. I mean,
full disclosure, we share the same editor, and I shout out to David. Shout out to David. He's a great editor.
Definitely.
All right. On the group's website, however, the intent to go to the Capitol that day was clearly marked as an itinerary included in the walk to the Capitol. So, there it is. There's a map of the meeting place, the Capitol, etc. So again, this is obvious that this is what they were intending to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the briefing occurred on January 5th, 2021, when the Homeland Security Division of the Flagler County, Florida Sheriff's Office met with the FLC and other pro-Trump protesters about to leave for Washington, D.C. They said that they were explicitly there on behalf of Mullins, who has been an outspoken supporter of former President Donald Trump. Throughout the briefing, Mullins stands next to the others. So let's talk about Mullins for a second.
Right. So Mullins is a county commissioner down there who reached out directly to Rick Staley, who is the constitutional sheriff that we mentioned earlier, who's not present. So it was actually almost before I put the piece out that I realized that he was a constitutional sheriff. But other than that, I don't know if I even would have mentioned him because, like I said, he's not there. They just mention him. They make explicitly clear, though, the two the sheriffs who are there, that they're there, and they're his. He says, we're his representatives. And I just lost myself. Where were we? What was your question?
I want to know a little bit more about Mullins. Like, what's his background?
Right, yeah.
He's a county commissioner. He's a politician.
Right. He's a county commissioner, which is a powerful local politician, and he's like one of these super MAGA, like, the guy's all in, obviously.
He's all in on Trump.
So he contacted the sheriff down there and asked, Mullins was going with them, so he asked, for some sort of security briefing or whatever, and that's what you see in the video, which is objectively pretty insane. I mean, that's what I keep coming back to. It's like many people in law enforcement hold right-wing views, but it's just amazing that in that whole thing, no one was ever like, man, I don't think this is a good idea. Like, people are filming this.
Because in their mind, it's obvious that they're the good guys and that they're right, and that's just how it is. Like, I don't think they ever anticipated that the FBI or anybody else would check their behavior.
And just to bring out the busload trip was sponsored by Mullins, so he paid for it in some capacity. And he explicitly put this together with the Flagler Liberty Coalition. There's another video where he and Mark Phillips, like, they organized this. So they organized this and then reached out to the sheriff, or Mullins did later, for the briefing.
All right, just so everybody knows who's on what base here. Mullins is the politician that is connected to the sheriff that paid for the buses to go to DC and was in contact with Phillips, who is the guy that we played the video of earlier that basically was telling them to bring knives and helmets to the Capitol and be prepared.
Right. Like any normal peaceful protest, bringing body armor, knives.
I mean, to be fair, I wear body armor to do as you do at this point, but it's because we've been attacked so many times. I do not bring any weapons, however.
Right.
Well, I do. Eric, that's not true. You know what weapon I bring? My camera.
There you go. Seriously. I was going to say too, on that note, another thing too that's interesting is, like, for a second, even putting the weapons aside, you were there to protest a lawful election of a president who won by 8 million votes. And even that, in a sane and normal country, no police or anyone would be want to be anywhere near that, right? Like, forget about the body armor. Like, Joe Biden crushed Donald Trump in the election. But I just think that's also interesting. Yeah.
It is interesting. The problem, though, is that these folks don't believe that. They still don't believe that. Do you remember the first flyers that came out with the Stop the Steal movement? They actually said, stop the count.
Yeah.
Stop
I know.
Count. Yeah. And I think they finally realized, like, oh, no, that is a bad look. We should change that. Stop the steal.
Stop voting.
Stop counting votes. Stop counting the votes. We're no longer a democracy. We want to install a fascist dictator. I mean, crazy. All right. So the briefing was primarily conducted by Flagler County Sheriff's deputies Mike Lutz and Chris Peterson. It combines conspiracy theories and misinformation, as well as a request that protesters tell the Donald the police say hello.
Yeah, Lutz has it seems like he's got some jokes, as they say.
Some jokes.
Yeah, he has one or two decent ones. Right? Yeah.
All right, so Lutz goes on to say this. Lutz says that anarchists will attack people if they travel solo, warning them to stay in groups. He adds that if members are confronted with violence, they can defend themselves. Lutz goes on to say that Antifa members will sucker punch and kick you. The group the police are addressing, the Flagler Liberty Coalition, began as an anti-mask organization in Florida through their YouTube channel, and their YouTube channel shows members training with firearms. They've been known to, Go ahead.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. No. They've been known to attend local community meetings trying to end mask mandates in Florida and schools. That's the thing. We've seen this crossover, Eric, even here in Los Angeles. The anti-mask movement, the anti-vaccine movement is absolutely morphed into this right-wing extremist group. We've seen Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, all of these folks out there. And now, of course, the other thing they're embracing is the anti-trans movement. It's all sort of kind of superseding on top of each other.
They tried to delete the training video, which I just put up on my Twitter, actually. But it was also too late. I also had that one already. That was, I think, a day before. It's like only a day or two before the briefing.
Right. Okay.
So that's very clear that they're training. They're shooting assault rifles and stuff like that.
They're prepping for the war. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
In the briefing, Lutz tells attendees, please be polite to law enforcement. Numerous pro-Trump supporters attacked police on the Capitol steps as a mob charged up to try and stop the certification of the 2020 election. In fact, we have some video of this group that day on J6. Let's go ahead and play that.
Today is the day of the Second American Revolution. The Second American Revolution is today.
They don't know what's going on here. They're like, they know, but they're watching now.
Whose house? 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 Yeah!
Our house, right? Whose house? Our house. But let's be clear. By our house, they don't mean all of us. They just mean the Trump people.
No, they also deleted that video, by the way, but we had that one. And I just want to be clear, too. We have no evidence that anyone in that group engaged in violence or entered the Capitol. No one's been indicted. But it's very clear. I've got other photos. They crossed into, they went into, restricted areas. And obviously we know, you saw the rest.
Yeah, no, they definitely will probably at some point be speaking to somebody about something.
I'm very interested in the police aspect about holding this briefing and the politician. But I don't know.
I am too. I mean, I don't know, but it seems to me that there's more where there's smoke, there's more fire.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about a little bit more about the Peterson. Hang on, where's the Peterson? I lost my place. Okay, Peterson, the director of Flagler's Homeland Security Division, claimed he was looking at criminal intelligence streams in advance of the riot and found that people would be posing as Trump supporters, so attendees should be careful who they speak with. So this, I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this sort of plays into this idea that that first came out, that the people that were actually rioting and entering the Capitol were Antifa, not Trump supporters, and that they were, in disguise as Trump supporters. All of that conspiracy that sort of went out. Is that a reference to that?
They absolutely. I mean, what's more incredible was, so that's before the Capitol, right? But what's fascinating is in the second video, when they come back, this is what's really interesting too. They are literally saying almost some of the same things that the cops were saying, but it's like the chicken or the egg. Like, who did you have these beliefs before then? I also think it's fascinating, and this is nothing groundbreaking, but it's absolutely fascinating that everything they say about anarchists, Antifa, or whatever, is literally the projection of their own consciousness of who they are.
100%.
That's incredible.
It's Olympic.
They're going to try to punch you. They're going to kick you. No. You were punching, kicking, and trying to kill cops up there. Not this group, to be clear, but
I mean, it's wild, but it is. It's Olympic level projection. Everything, because they perceive a world in which everybody thinks as they do, right? They don't have that ability to try to understand another person's position or where they're coming from. I mean, we've seen it when we try to interview these folks, right? It's you can't even talk to them at a certain level because you're just like, I mean. I remember that guy who was like, you love Andrew Cuomo and you think he should be, and I was like, yeah, I literally just did a piece yesterday criticizing Andrew Cuomo and saying he should resign because he's corrupt, but carry on.
And I really want to know, when I submitted my list of questions to the sheriff's department, what were those criminal intelligence streams? They didn't obviously write back, but I really want to know, what is your Facebook page? Like, what do you look at? Where are you getting that from?
Yeah, I mean, is it really something internal, or is it, you're saying it's that because you're a sheriff and you're the one that's recording it or streaming it? I mean, who knows? That's
a very important thing. Like, what are these guys looking at? I know that they may have their own beliefs or whatever, but he said criminal intelligence streams. What were you looking at? Where did that come from?
But he didn't respond to comment. I'm assuming.
They didn't respond to 2 emails.
Did anybody in this article at all respond for comment? Any of them?
Well, I guess in a way you could look at that about 2 hours after I sent Flagler Liberty and Mark Phillips, a request for comment, the Flag of Liberty page just straight up disappeared, and the video, you can look at it as a backwards kind of comment, and the YouTube videos came down.
Right. Yeah, we tend to have an effect. Every time I ask for comments, stuff just comes off the internet. I've gotten to the point now, Eric, where before I reach out to anybody for comment about any page, I put it in the Wayback Machine because I know they're going to delete it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's wild.
Absolutely.
Anyway, all right. So let's joke that people who would be pretending to be Trump supporters would break out in a rash if they put on MAGA gear.
Yeah, it's stand-up comedy.
It is stand-up comedy.
Lutz is when your listeners and viewers see Lutz, you'll understand what I mean.
Right. Okay. So during the briefing, a pro-Trump supporter claimed that cell phones at a previous protest were fried by authorities trying to jam electronics. Lutz told attendees to be careful with having their Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on, although he also notes that cell phones being attacked at pro-Trump rallies is news to him. What's that coming from?
That part was especially interesting because it's like this weird boomer-ish moment. First of all, it is, and she takes over the briefing for a second. The pro-Trump protester, she's the one who brings that up, and then he's like, okay, he's like, okay, great, yeah, that's probably true. Maybe I haven't seen that. That part is funny it's just a little comedic. She's like, yeah, we were up there. I think she's talking about one of the November protests in 2020. And she's saying my cell phone was fried or whatever or something.
Do we have anybody else? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Did you touch on the cell phone?
What's that?
Did you touch on the cell phone?
About?
It probably won't work.
I have people out of my group went to DC in November.
Okay.
When you are there, make sure your Wi-Fi and your location is off because all their cell phones got fried.
Oh, okay.
For a ride. It cost her $300.
And it went black.
And
Okay.
all these people standing around, they locked them out.
Someone just made a comment about your cell phones. If you're using your cell phones there, some people last time they were up there, their cell phones got attacked. So be careful if you have your Wi-Fi on and Bluetooth with your location and such. Wow. That'll be up to you, but that's news to me, so thank you for that. So be careful with that, all right? And be careful running around with the cell phones because people may want to rip it out of your hands. So be very careful with that.
Okay. On January 7th, the Flagler Liberty Coalition group returned and were interviewed in a subsequent video, also taken by Eaton. Several people admit to not only attending Trump's speech, but heading to the Capitol building. One tells Eaton, towards the end of Trump's speech, we wanted to make sure we got a good spot at the Capitol, where they were supposed to do the counting of the electoral votes. But then by the time we got to the State House, we found out that Pence already certified 40 minutes prior, roughly speaking. Kind of chaos had broken loose. That's eventually when we started trying to take the steps of the Capitol. So, again, this person's pretty much admitting.
Yeah. I thought when I found the first video, I was like, okay, I got a good piece here. But when I saw that Eaton had a second video when they got back, I was like, I knew that somebody said something bad when they got off that bus. And he's not the only one. There's unfortunately the sound isn't very good.
Right.
But there's at least one or two other people. But that guy was straight up like, yeah, we're trying to take the steps. I'm like, man, you shouldn't have said that on video.
But, I mean, you have to imagine that in the moment, they actually saw themselves as the moral arbiter of justice, right? They didn't think or perceive that this would be taken as an insurrection or anything wrong. Because again, they believe that Trump won the election, even though he didn't.
Yes.
This is their belief, and they will take that belief, I think most of them, to the grave with them. You can't convince them otherwise.
Unfortunately.
So you also, I wanted to play Phillips, our original video guy that was telling people to bring knives and helmets to the Capitol. He spoke with, he did an interview on his channel that you also had posted it, that is with the wife of a sergeant who had been arrested. And I want to play a little clip from that.
So they was trying to get me to come out the door and I didn't move. And they was like, well, can we at least go to the backyard to get him from out the front yard? And I was like, well, I'm waiting for the warrant, Basically, they pushed their way in.
Okay. And so they searched your house
and didn't present the warrant until after the fact.
Okay. I mean, that was my next
All the
question.
videos are on Rumble.
I know many people that were there that were trying to stop some agitators in the
Yes.
crowd that were trying to
I saw
destroy
that.
things. So that's why I asked. So he went from Brevard County to Virginia, I believe.
No, he went from Brevard County to Seminole County.
Seminole County, okay.
Yeah. And from Seminole County, he went to Virginia, Northern Neck Regional Jail. And they're the ones that actually held him in, they call it the medical ward. It's not the medical ward, it is the hole. They put him in the hole for 8 days.
For no reason.
Because he complained his chest was hurting. He wasn't feeling good.
So their response to that was put him in a hole.
Yeah. And the nurse kept telling him, you deserve that. That's mental abuse.
Okay, so this is the wife of Kenneth Harrelson, who is one of the Oath Keepers that has been charged with sedition. And although I do agree with her that is mental abuse and that shouldn't be happening in prisons, what is his relationship to Phillips? Do you know? Why is he interviewing this individual?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm not sure. It might be based on, I believe those folks live in Florida. So I'm not really sure how that came about.
Okay, it was
like
just
I
on
said,
his channel?
Say again?
It was just on his channel?
Yeah, it was on Rumble. He seemed, Phillips, well, I don't have any evidence that he's got any relationship with these groups, like he's a member. He seems to definitely hold sympathies. I did find another picture of Phillips outside. It was one of these free RJ6 prisoners, and he's wearing Proud Boy colors, but that does not, as you know, doesn't mean
not
we've seen
necessarily.
sympathetic people. Yeah.
Right.
So
sympathetic people buy their T-shirts and wear them. If you see them repeatedly wearing them and attending Proud Boy rallies, it's probably the case that they're Proud Boy. But indeed, it's not. If one shot wouldn't be enough to establish that. Okay, so this was just some video so he interviewed the wife of one of the Oath Keepers. All right, I wasn't sure if that was related to the story or not. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, and on what you said, one of the things that makes it interesting is that it is fascinating to see right-wing extremists discovering the many issues in this nation's jails, which, unless I missed something, they couldn't have cared less about eight months ago.
Or, no, they didn't care about them at all. If it's systemic racism, it's fine. This is why I constantly caution folks about sort of claiming that the right wing has finally woken up to these problems. No, they haven't woken up to these problems. Yeah. They don't want to abolish the FBI because they think the FBI is problematic whatsoever. They want to abolish the FBI and replace it with Pinochet's army, is what I keep saying. They want to replace it with a fascist group that will do their bidding. They don't care about systemic racism whatsoever. So don't kid yourselves that it's the same. It's not the same. Yeah. They have their own different kind of a beef, and what they want to replace the FBI with isn't a group of folks that understand the difference between a mental health crisis and somebody committing a crime. I promise you on this. All right. So one thing we like to do on this show is sort of play some crazy clips about what's going on in right-wing insanity this week and, have a good chuckle of them. I have one that's sort of marginally serious and also marginally funny. So let's start with that one. This is a tweet from Billy Corbin. Twitter suspends Florida Republican State House candidate Luis Miguel after he advocates shooting federal agents because Florida. So the tweet that got him suspended says, under my plan, all Floridians will have permission to shoot FBI, IRS, ATF, and all other feds on site. Let freedom ring. These guys are getting. I know.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just like, but how is that real? That's real.
It's real, my friend. It's real. These guys are becoming much more extreme by the day, right? Because now there's this layer of martyrdom that's happening, right? So prior to, January 6th, there was a buildup to this belief that they were the right ones. Trump won the election. There's no way we could have possibly lost. They're stealing it. They had all of these crazy accounts of election fraud that none of them ended up being true whatsoever. So, but now that they're all, ultimately paying the price by doing jail time, Trump is now under indictment or been raided by the FBI, whatnot. now that we've reached a level of martyrdom where they're now, coming out saying like, shoot those guys. They're on the wrong side of history. It's fine. That makes us more moral. Right. And also this idea that they are willing to die themselves for freedom. I mean, we've seen posts of this nature too, like we will die for our cause kind of things. That's just sort of, it's been ratcheted up to that level at this point. So yeah, absolutely. These guys, but it's wild to see somebody actually running for office say something like that and just put it in black and white and not fear any repercussions. Because I would say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that would not have been the case.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, I guess it's not surprising, even if you look at the sentences that the January 6th insurrectionists are getting. So like if the worst one is like, what's the worst one? Like 7 years,
right.
If there's no consequences, I mean, we'll just continue to see the rhetoric ratcheted up. It's like,
right. And most of the sentences are pretty tame, actually. They're, 180 days. Like the vast majority of them are not extreme. Some folks aren't serving any time at all. So I think it depends on how involved you were with what happened. But here's the thing, the left wing has endured much longer sentences for lesser crimes for a long time. If you look at a history of political violence in the country, and it's in per capita, if we look at who's committing, acts of terrorism and political violence, it's absolutely right wingers over left wingers. No competition. That's always been the case.
And I hope that this is finally sinking in at places like the FBI, which are now seeing a very real, we saw that guy attack the FBI office, right? And
Cincinnati, yeah.
All these organizations and law enforcement tend to lean right. And I just really hope they're understanding like who these people are and the real threat that this is in a way that they didn't maybe even a year ago. Yeah.
Right. 100%. All right. Can we talk about Russell Brand for a second?
Tina, it's your show. I'm here to talk about whatever. Yeah. Russell Brand, sure.
All right. I want to play this clip of Russell Brand because he's talking about conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists. And I really can't focus on what he's saying because he's somehow managed to duct tape his necklace to his chest in 50 different places because it was hitting his mic, I guess.
My idea is, my notion is, my fear and my suspicion is that the term conspiracy theorist is used to prevent legitimate questioning of centralized state financial and pharmacological power. For a while, it was considered a conspiracy theory to say that, hey, maybe the media don't report on the pharmaceutical industry responsibly because of all the funding. But then we saw this.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's just a straight no from me as your guest.
Russell, you can just remove the necklace. It's okay.
Oh, I was talking about what he was saying, but yeah, I wasn't even looking at the necklace because I was just like, my brain was like, like what?
The necklace.
It's like when these people scream, "Do your research!" Like they're like, and you could feel your brain melting. Like
what's really tragic here too is Russell Brand has actually some pretty good takes when it comes to discussing the plutonymy and the extraction of wealth to the 1%. So. But like everybody in the sphere we're in right now, I feel like all of these folks are kind of sort of getting red pilled into this, more extreme radicalized version of these things. Right. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again now. It's because the Democratic Party, who is the only, legitimate left in this country, I wish that wasn't the case, they haven't provided any sort of left exit to the income inequality that the country's experiencing. So it's sort of funneling people into this red-pilled right-wing extremism, and it's really unfortunate. All right. Dr. Oz, Eric. We're going to talk about Dr. Oz now. We have the crudité thing, which I'm not going to play because I think everybody's seen the crudité video by now. That was just bizarre that he thought that putting this video of him in a grocery store picking up vegetables and complaining about the price of crudité would, I don't know who he thought that was going to speak to, but it was a bizarre video. But let's talk about this status that he has that's still up and out there in the world. Evolution. Ugly men make more sperm than attractive men because they don't get as many chances to deposit it.
I was just curious. It's absurd either way, but ridiculous. But I was trying to see when he tweeted that.
The date's on there. I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still up. It's still out there. What the hell is he even talking about?
I think a lot of people are asking that very question. Like, what is this guy? I don't, by the way, I just looked at that 2 times and I don't understand. Maybe I just need more coffee, but I'm like,
Eric, I've looked at that tweet 100 times and I don't understand.
And he's even not liked by some of the very far right.
Right.
Like I've noticed some of these very far right people, and I'm not sure what the deal is there.
Well, it's because he's wealthy. He's wealthy, and he doesn't actually live in Pennsylvania. He's from New Jersey. Right. So you buy property in a state, and now you're running for office in the state. You're not from the state. You're not one of them. You're right. Uber wealthy. You're not going to the populist right wing part of the extremists aren't going to be down for that, right? You're part of the problem in their mind. So
yeah.
All right, then we had this really great, and I will just laugh my butt off over this for like the next millennium, this really great oopsie on Fox News this week. Let's play that.
Didn't really show up for that, hasn't shown up for much of the lieutenant governor's job. He's known for hanging a pot flag out of the window. His only real campaigning was to get marijuana legalized. Sean, I'm the son of an immigrant, and I knew from the day one when I was a kid, you work hard, you challenge yourself to achieve greatness, to support America, and you'll achieve the American dream. That's not
the gay one.
I missed that one. That's a legitimately that's a.
You think he would have stopped himself and said, "I meant day"? No, he just kept going. So bizarre Freudian slip there. Also, the pot thing, like. Yeah. This guy needs to put a pitchfork in his campaign. I think he's done. What do you think?
It's like, I mean, I don't know what the polling is, but I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, just even what you just played, the first part with, something happened with pot. It's like nobody, even the most far right people, even care about that. Like,
no, just legalize it and be done with it. It's just ridiculous that he's still. Yeah, I agree with you.
He's.
Tone deaf.
I mean, Fetterman. Last I checked, he's pulling ahead. So. We'll see.
Yeah, 100%. I think Fetterman's got this sealed up. All right, let's shift gears, go down to Texas, because, wow, Chuck Norris. Greg Abbott has been rightly criticized for not doing anything in response to the Uvalde shooting. Nothing, right? So these kids were killed. Police ran away with their tails between their legs because apparently their moment to shine wasn't something that they could, have enough courage to get into. They let these kids get shot. What is Greg Abbott's response to this criticism? It's to bring Chuck Norris into the conversation. Let's play this.
I'm Chuck Norris. I love bringing bad guys to justice, but law enforcement can't stop the bad guys if they don't know who they are. That's why I wanted to tell you about iWatch, a website, phone app, and service that allows Texans to report suspicious activity, whether it's criminal acts, terror threats, or someone wanting to harm children. If you see something, say something and help keep communities in the great state of Texas safe.
This is so fucking tone deaf. I mean, wow. We don't know. We can't help them if we don't know who the bad guys are. We need to protect children. Chuck, are you serious? They knew exactly who the bad guys were, and they didn't protect the children.
I wasn't aware of that clip, actually, until you. I was buried in this Florida story for the recent.
Right. So this this came out this week. It's this new website app that he's launched called iWatch. So people can log into this app. And if they see something like, it's sort of like neighborhood watch kind of a thing. But just this ad, considering that what it's a response to, it's so phenomenally offensive, I think.
We're going to find out in the, if O'Rourke can pull this off and if something like that is going to matter. I mean, I'll be fascinated. Will stuff like this in the end have an effect, and will Beto O'Rourke be able to beat Abbott?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of Beto O'Rourke, just all things considered, but I would take him over Greg Abbott 100%.
Right.
All right. So who is our favorite anti-masker of all time? Because he's just, Ethan Schmidt.
Oh, wow.
Let's play this Ethan Schmidt clip.
Folks of the LGBT community are raping and molesting their children and their animals, giving them monkeypox. This is what happens when, government promotes, this type of stuff. This is what happens when the government promotes Pride Month. They give the okay to for them, for these people to molest their kids and their dogs, you know. It's an absolute disgrace. But, you know, with my 3-step plan, with, you know, me and Carrie Lake, our 3-step plan will help stop the spread of monkeypox, which is a serious epidemic among the reprobates. So, with my 3-step plan, we're going to eradicate monkeypox once and for all. As you know, this is a serious public health emergency. So, step 1 is to shut down all LGBT affiliated businesses, because that's where the spread is happening. That's where a lot of the transmission is happening, believe it or not. So we're going to start by shutting down all businesses that have any type of pride paraphernalia, or rainbow paraphernalia products, propaganda, whatever type, you know, or if they're even affiliated at all or support LGBT, you know, we're going to have them shut down for public health measures. And step 1. Step 2 is all folks of the LGBT community must self-quarantine, you know, if they affiliate with the community, you know, for their own safety and the safety of others, and for public safety. They're going to have to self-quarantine, and if they refuse, we're going to have to hunt them down, round them up, and put them into self-quarantine isolation camps. And you might say, you know, it's too much to put gay people in concentration camps or self-quarantine camps, you know. But you know what? Other people, you know what? These governments across the world are doing the same thing. They're putting people in quarantine camps if they have COVID. They're making them self-quarantine, and you know, they're forcing these people to do this.
This guy is a public health threat, in my opinion. Ethan Schmidt is. He's from Arizona, so for folks that don't know anything about him, he's from Arizona. He is one of the most homophobic lunatics out there, in my opinion. He is perpetually posting videos like this, full of lies. I mean, really raping animals and spreading monkeypox. None of this is true. It's hateful, but it's also just categorically not true. And I think the danger here, I mean, obviously we can make fun of this guy and laugh at him, but the danger here is that people do listen to this guy and follow him. That's the first part. And the second part is he's sort of adding this layer of, it's just like AIDS. It's a gay disease. Nobody else has to worry about it. And if we just handle the problem with the gay folks, we'll be fine. But this isn't true. It's not a gay disease. Anybody can catch this. Children are catching it. The reason we're seeing a higher rate of infection in one group is because that's where the virus is currently, and it's floating around that community. And, you know, let's be frank, AIDS started out in that community, but then it spread. We reached a time when heterosexual women, probably white women, let's be honest, were getting AIDS at a much higher rate than any of the gay folks were, because it's a virus. Virus spreads. A virus doesn't have any moral idea about what's right or wrong or who they're going to attack. I mean, it's absolutely fucking ludicrous.
Yeah, well, viruses and Ethan Schmidt might have something in common about having no kind of moral center. I mean, just you go to your point. But I was going to say, he was in, as you know, he's in court the other day, and some of that video was on Twitter. It's for a previous incident, and there was none of these antics. There was none of that. It was just sort of what you see with these characters, just somebody, you know, when the camera's off, it's like a different person. And you know, there's always something interesting about that. And he'll get his public defender. And there was, I forget who a local journalist put the Twitter thread up, but it was very,
and he's in court in Arizona right now for his actions at the state capitol, I'm assuming, or?
I'm not sure. I know he's obviously had a number of run-ins with the law, but one thing I thought was interesting was the judge said something like, you know, where's your lawyer? I can't afford one. Okay. You know, well, obviously appoint one, but I can't afford one because I can't get a job. It was like, I mean,
and it might be because of these videos that you're putting out there. No, you know what? No brand wants to be associated with this nonsense. You know, just for people to have some background information on too. He's the guy, and I'm sure a lot of you saw this video. He's the guy that went into a Target store and started harassing people inside the Target store during Pride Month because they were selling. They had a section where they were selling some Pride things. He lost his shit. He put the video up. Other people shared it. You know. And it went viral. thing is I think you're making a point there. Some of these guys are just desperate, absolutely desperate for attention.
1,000%. I mean, it's all there when you watch that video of him going into court. And yeah, I mean, but you and I kind of know that already because we cover these characters and most of them are the same.
All right, let's move to my favorite politician to just chuckle at, Marjorie Taylor Greene, once again out there saying crazy stuff. This time she wants her constituents to vote multiple times, even though she's against election fraud. Let's play the clip.
Have hope, fight, support people like Representative Greene. Get out and vote with you and your 20 closest friends and neighbors in November.
And make it 40, vote 1, 2, 3 times, whatever.
Whatever the law will allow you to do, which in Georgia is almost anything. So
you never know.
You never know. Thank you so much for being here, for the hope, for your fight, and for communicating with us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
I
it very
always
much.
will.
Yes,
Always
thank
will.
you.
Thanks
so much.
All right. So, you know, part of me says she's being tongue in cheek and she's poking fun of the fact that they think that there's ripe election fraud in Georgia. But
yeah, she's just like Schmidt, actually. Someone had a profile of her. I think it was, I don't know if it was New York or the New Yorker, but it was pretty interesting. And it was basically, my recollection of it is that it was describing a person who does not really exist unless they're receiving attention, and negative attention is fine. There's some kind of gaping psychological hole there, and there's a real lesson there. I think that came out very clearly with how we, as whether you're a reporter or just a citizen, or the best way we can deal with these people.
Yeah, you know, it's hard finding a balance, because I do think some of these folks should be just absolutely put on ignore, and there is a group of folks that I do put on ignore and I don't talk about whatsoever. Yeah. My thing is this: that when they start to do violent things in the world, or they're elected to office and they have growing fan bases, I don't think ignoring them makes that stuff go away. So there is a responsibility to find a balance between these two positions. I think those that are not having any influence in the world and are desperate for attention, we should ignore. But
you're right.
If they're elected to office, I mean,
it's
enough people thought she was right. It's a balance. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's a balance, and I know that I do the best I can, but I know that I do not always get it right, and it's very difficult. It's a struggle I deal with personally as a reporter on extremism. You know, I want to, like I said, I want to talk about what's going on, but I don't want to give a dangerous voice to a person, amplify their voice. So.
Right, 100% agree with you. I think once it's already been amplified, we discuss it. That's sort of what my bar is. So, I mean, as you know, there are plenty of people here that you and I have both, filmed, and we have the conversation. I'm not going to share that. People don't need to know about this guy. But again, there is a point where they do become newsworthy. And I think also, we're seeing this now. Part of ignoring this festering part of the nation for years is what's led them to grow in the dark. And they have grown in the dark.
The interesting thing, and I've been thinking about this, was actually going back to my piece about Florida. So the independent journalist Tracy Eaton, who took those videos, I've been thinking a lot about how if I was there, I would not have captured that footage, because I do not allow my work to be used to push misinformation. So, I mean, and if someone's talking, and especially if it was a live stream, I would politely cut them off. I won't allow that to happen. But the other side is that because he doesn't cut them off at all,
we have
they say a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it depends on how you look at it. There was a time when I actually tried to talk with these folks and interview them. I think the final straw with me was when I gave somebody some pushback on something they were saying, and they just started screaming evil at me multiple times. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like,
we do the best we can. We don't always get it right, but we do the best we can.
So now I just sort of film them and be like, okay, all right. So this has to be my favorite all-time bizarre clip. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to just say in advance, please, in addition to listening to what this person's saying, please read the chyron, because I'm not clear on what this chyron is, why it's up there, and what it has to do with what she's saying.
That's how you start a revolution. We should all know by now that you cannot comply your way out of tyranny, and the Dutch are leading by incredible example. So why can't we do that here in America? Why are we allowing these evil elites to dictate our lives? Why can't we all man the hell up and fight back? I don't know about you, but I think it's somewhat ignorant to rely solely on elections to make these essential changes that our country so desperately needs, when it's become abundantly clear that our entire system is rigged and corrupt. Why don't we, the people, get organized and take the power back?
All right, so the Chiron says, disturbing amount of people who actually want to eat bugs in an effort to be sustainable. So this woman's ranting about revolution and I don't know, whatever else. And meanwhile, the entire time they have this Chiron up talking about people eating bugs. Help me out here.
Also, is that Allison? She looked very familiar, like maybe from out here in California.
I do not know who this person is. If anybody wants to identify her for me, that'd be great.
I'm pretty sure I know who that is, but
okay.
And that was, I don't know if that was OAN or Newsmax.
Yeah.
It was OAN. Yeah. It was a little hard to follow that, but I did hear some part about not voting or not having elections.
You know, again, I couldn't get past the Chiron. Why are they having this Chiron about a disturbing amount of people who actually want to eat bugs in an effort to be sustainable? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
No, there's something going around. I just read Ben Collins was just talking about there's some conspiracy going around on the right about when things really go down with, you know, when the government comes for you, you're going to have to eat bugs. Seriously. Yeah. Gateway Pundit had a thing on it. I lost it too. They're going to make you eat bugs. It's like, okay.
Can I dip mine in chocolate first?
I mean, that's a new one, but you remember too that OAN, which is on which is on its way out, you know, they're struggling to keep up with the big dogs, right? So Fox might not air the bug story, so you got to really put it out there, you know. Maybe get some footage of some liberal eating, you know, stock footage.
Yeah, let's get some. No, I want to see the video of the preppers freeze drying all of the bugs that they can get in their backyard: cockroaches, ants, mosquitoes, moths, you name it.
Yeah, Collins was just talking about it. They're like, when the feds come for you, you're gonna have to eat bugs. I mean, I don't know.
All right, y'all. I'm going to leave you with that. Eat bugs. Thanks for joining us, Eric. I appreciate your time and sharing your article with us. I hope everybody learned a little bit about constitutional sheriffs and why we need to pay attention to this movement. And we will see you next week.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Eric Levai, ERICLEVAI. Got to get that plug in.
Got to get that plug in.
Thanks, Tina.